I am on a Mom's Odyssey road trip, and I am picking up Beth.
You are silly.
I'm not silly.
What are you then?
Forgivable.
Just because he speaks as well as he does today, it was not always that way. And there was also the added component of COVID. We're Minnesotans. Of course we spend 20 minutes getting our kids ready to go outside for 30 seconds.
Run for Minnesota, cause we hibernate.
I envy him sometimes too, like the ability that he has to just disconnect and like shut the world off when he wants to.
Hey, I am so excited. Today I am on location in snowy Alexandria, Minnesota, and I am picking up Beth. I've never met her, but she is pretty incredible. She is a mom, an inclusion advocate for her son, and she is a photographer, a writer. I am really excited to get to interview her today and bring you along for the ride.
I'm Beth.
Yes, yeah.
I have one son. His name is Cooper, and he's 5. What do you want me to see?
My style.
That's your style?
Yeah.
So I'm a photographer, which is really like 6 months of the year here. I mean, everybody wants to be out.
I know.
I also do content creation, sharing a lot about our journey, which I mean, we'll touch on a little bit.
Yeah.
And website design is my full-time job.
Well, if you like describe yourself as a mom, are you like, I'm kind of this kind of mom? Or like laid back? Are you kind of more intentional? Or there's certain words or phrases?
Probably more laid back, which is makes me laugh to say because I never would have expected that. Like I thought I would be like a type A Pinterest mom. like I like to do things with him versus just being at home because he's also a busybody.
He's like active and Does he have favorite things that he likes to do?
Go Target.
Okay.
Go to Starbucks.
Who doesn't, right?
Yeah, right.
Do you have someone that we can deliver the coffee to? Okay.
My friend Ashley.
And is she a mom or what does she do?
Yep.
Like,
so we actually, funnily enough, went to high school in like neighboring towns together, and we met after high school when we were both like town royalty, you know, like the people that are in parades and stuff.
Yes, the queens of the town.
Yeah. So we like knew each other. We didn't really become like good friends, and then we both ended up here and reconnected. And so they also have one child.
Okay.
And so our boys get along. They're a few years apart, but they get along pretty well.
Okay.
And she works in social work, so she's gonna run outside.
Oh, okay. So fun. Awesome. Okay, so here, rapid fire. Cats or dogs? Or neither? Okay, dogs. Okay, type of dog? Or do you have a dog?
We have 3 and a cat.
So. Okay. But if you were like, for sure a dog person.
Probably dogs most days.
Okay. Morning or night? Are you a morning or night person?
Morning.
If you could go on a dream vacation anywhere, what would you?
Ooh. It's supposed to be rapid fire. That's our
No,
travel a lot.
This is the one that's really not rapid fire. It's
anywhere.
Okay.
I don't have like a specific country, but somewhere in South America again.
Ooh,
so I studied abroad
nice.
there.
Oh, you did?
College.
Do you speak Spanish?
Yeah, I minored in Spanish.
Oh, that's awesome. Coffee. What are we getting?
Okay.
I haven't even thought about myself.
Okay, so Ashley wants a small caramel high rise, I think is what she said.
Okay. So we're gonna start with a small caramel high rise.
I already had a large iced Americano, so I'm gonna can I just get a medium white hot chocolate with peppermint?
I'll just do a small latte.
The one that came to mind, like initially, it has to do with being a mom, but not necessarily my own kid.
Yeah.
So, you know, Cooper was born five years ago, and then my sister, her little boy's almost 2.
Yeah.
And they live in Buffalo, so I don't like spend a lot of time with them.
Yeah.
But she was coming up here to visit one day, and Coop was at daycare or something, and she was getting a tattoo locally, and I was like, yeah, I'll just take Will.
Thank you.
And which one was mine?
Wait, which one was this? This is the latte.
Okay, latte.
Yeah, you too. So you have a 2-year-old at the park.
Yes. Okay. And so just, you know how you're just very in tune with your own child's like movements and like what they're going to do next. And
are they going to jump in the road?
Right. And I was like, Will tends to be pretty like mellow, but we start stomping in puddles and I was like, okay, cool, whatever. Like we have more clothes.
Yes.
And all of a sudden I see like literal poop just dripping out of his diaper into the puddle, like flopping. And he had an enormous blowout, like up the back, down the leg.
This is like a larger kid. It's not like an infant. Yes.
Well, she's chunked too. So like, I mean, he probably weighs about what Cooper does now. Which is crazy. But and I had not had the foresight to like bring the stroller or the diaper bag or anything. I like have him like this walking towards the car. And some guys like pulled up behind my car, just kind of sitting in his car, just like watching.
You're like,
this.
you do not know what
I'm like, you wouldn't know I'm a mom. And then I got there, got the bag, and then there's like nowhere to change him because it's just like a city park. Yeah, so I literally had to just like lay him in the pavilion. It starts downpouring and thundering and lightning, and there's just poop everywhere. And
did you have like a plastic bag in the car or anything that you could be like, we're just gonna
remember.
I mean,
I think I threw some of it away.
Yes. Well, yeah, you just have to I mean, that's
like, I'll buy you more clothes, I guess.
Yeah.
But Cooper is like a wild child and on
Yeah.
the move, but he's not quiet about it. Like, you know what he's doing and where he is.
Yeah.
And Will is just like a little ninja.
Yes.
And I still laugh about it because I got in the car and I was just like dripping sweat and I was like, I thought I would be fine. Like, I have a kid. I always say, like, he's just been a wild card surprise from the beginning. We got engaged in January of 2019 when we were in Florida on vacation, and then got back to Minnesota like 36 hours later. I took a pregnancy test, found I was pregnant. So we were engaged for like a solid 36 hours before I found out I was pregnant. And, like, we were not trying. It was a shock. Like, it was, you know, I was not happy to begin with. It was just a lot.
It's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I finally, like, you know, we'd wrapped our minds around becoming parents when he was born, and then we pretty quickly got his diagnosis that he was profoundly deaf. So he was 6 weeks old when we got that diagnosis.
Okay. Did you notice, or like
we pretty much knew before that. He didn't pass his newborn screening in the hospital, which isn't overly abnormal. Sometimes they just say, like, it can be fluid in the ears or whatever.
Yes.
So it was like on our radar, and then he was born with like a big white swash of hair in the front. And so
is that a sign of it?
Like, I didn't know that, but I had posted in like a mom group I was in, like, has this happened? Like, has anybody else's baby like had hair that stayed like that? And somebody commented, I've heard that can be a sign of Waardenburg syndrome. And I had never heard of Waardenburg syndrome.
No.
Ever.
Yeah.
So I started Googling, as you do, which can be really good or really bad.
I know, you're like,
and it was just like reading a checklist of like his physical features. So like the white forelock,
just a little
wider set eyes. Yep, and he still has it.
Okay.
His other hair is lightened up a little, so it's not quite as obvious. But his super blue eyes, or having 2 different colored eyes, like just all these features that he had. Got to the point where it was like being deaf or hard of hearing is a really common aspect of it.
Okay.
And so that's when, honestly, I think he was about 3 weeks when that unfolded, and that's when I was like, I knew at that point.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, we had been paying attention, like he hadn't responded to anything. And so even though we knew going into that, like, auditory brainstem response is the more like detailed in-depth test that tells you more at Children's. Like, this is how I always do things. It's like I panic and I think I can't handle it, and then I start taking action because it makes me feel in control again.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the same path that I went with this, was like, I just started digging into information and like connecting with people and looking for people on social media who were like on the same path and all of this stuff. And I remember early on, another parent that I connected with in our hometown told me, like, one day you'll look back and you wouldn't change it even if you could. And I was like, I don't believe that.
Yes.
And now, like, I'm 100% there. Like, it's just been a beautiful journey. It's like introduced us to deaf culture, which I didn't really even know was like a thing. It was still like a lot to process as a
first time mom.
Yeah.
And did you have people that were like your go-to people?
So my husband's actually got family. His aunt, cousin, and her kids are all deaf. And they primarily sign, so they don't use hearing devices or anything. So they were a really good resource. They don't have like Waardenburg syndrome, so it's just kind of a funny coincidence.
So it's different than just being deaf. It's like this other.
Yeah, so that's the cause. Early days, it was a lot because we have to go from here to the cities for essentially every appointment.
Yes.
And so I was so grateful that my parents live in Buffalo, which is, you know, like 40 minutes from the hospital. My husband had to go back to work like a week after I had Coop, which is a whole nother conversation.
Yes,
but
seriously.
So I was doing a lot of those appointments like on my own as far as driving. But
and a newborn, did he do okay in the car?
He luckily, he's always been a very good car rider.
You know, we've been talking about it, but like, is there a way that you frame like who you've become? Like, so what if when you became a mom, instead of losing yourself, you found yourself? Like, what are you like, oh my gosh, I would never have become this version of Beth?
And I think it's unique for me because I don't really feel like I've lost parts of myself.
Okay.
That makes, I think that's something that a lot of people do go through, and maybe I did like a little bit in the beginning. But I mean, it was always very important to me to continue like doing the things that I love, like, you know, CrossFit and photography and all these things. And I was lucky enough to have like the support system to be able to put those things in place still. But I would say, it's definitely made me like discover pieces of myself that like maybe were underlying or just, you know, I didn't need to tap into. Like I touched on earlier, the patience aspect. Like I'm not typically a super patient person, but like I've just discovered a part of me that is when it comes to Cooper. I got sober in college, and that was something that I like talked about a lot and wrote about and shared. Yeah. And so it's kind of natural to just kind of continue that.
Yeah, that's a good question. How did you decide to be open about like everything and share out?
I jumped on TikTok during the pandemic. So that's like when our following started to really take off. And I didn't really know, like I had no idea how the app worked. I didn't know what was going on. My sister looked at the page and she was like, that's a lot of people. Okay.
Like,
so it's kind of grown just from there, and it hasn't all been like sunshine and rainbows by any means, but like I never went into it with the intention of becoming like a content creator. I never want to be a full-time content creator. Like I still let it be something that like I enjoy and
do as you feel inspired to do.
And it makes people laugh and brings joy. And like it's also, I think, worth touching on, like it's a hard thing to navigate as your kid gets older and like what do I want to share? What's okay to share? Like what will they look back on and wish I hadn't shared? And like, that's something that I'm constantly juggling too, because you know he's his own person, and it's like it's hard, and I don't want people to think that I'm only sharing like all the happy laughy moments, but I'm like, you know, the harder stuff maybe I did share more of when he was little, but now if I share it, it's my like talking about it.
Before we give it to her, we have to pick out a sticker. Great mom, great moms. This one is a water bottle sticker. Just be like, sorry, you can't have it yet. Mom boss, because she's like working. Should we do that?
Yeah, that works.
Let's stick it on the cup. So they still have their holiday stuff. Mom boss, because we're dropping it off to her at work. She's a social worker. Yeah, you said that's awesome. Yep, awesome.
Drop off. You don't even have to be on camera. Thanks for being here.
Is there like a certain moment maybe early on that you're like, I feel like not just proud of Cooper, but like proud of myself?
I think it was this past summer. Okay. And it actually is in one of our like card chat videos, which this is like so perfectly in line with what I do. That
yes, I know. I was like, he's normally like right back there, right?
Yeah. We were having like on and off issues with his implants. Like he only wanted to wear one of them for like 8 months. Suddenly brought up like, Aubrey asked me why I wear these, and I told her that I wear them for hearing. That's why. Your cochlear implants are how you hear, right?
Aubrey told me, why do you wear those ones? Because I told her I use them for hearing. That's why I told her.
Yeah? You told her that all by yourself?
Yeah.
That makes me so proud of you. It was the first time I heard him really like vocally advocate for himself, or like, you know, even though he was like retelling the story. Yeah. But it just was one of those like, it like brought me to tears, because I was like, this is why we've done all this work. Yeah. And like, I mean, like that's why we've done it, is because I want him to have that voice and like be confident. Yeah. And, like, you know, and I think about personality wise, he's a very confident man. Like he just is. He is who he is. And like I never want him to lose that.
One of the thoughts I was actually wondering is like, I feel like all of us have unique, obviously, children and things. And I even talking to my mom today, I was like, I just feel like some people, it's really easy for them. Is it ever hard that you feel like people just don't get the journey of what you're on? And that's maybe some of why you do the storytelling.
I feel like some people look at me and think like, well, how is she a mom and still doing all of these things? And like, that's why I mentioned, you know, having that support system earlier. I mean, that we're so fortunate to have that to chase my passions and follow my dreams and travel. And like, that was always very, very important to me, because I genuinely like 100% know that I'm a better mom when I am not with my child all the time. Like, to people who stay home, my mom stayed home with 5 of us. I couldn't do it.
No. And I think your assign, like your kid is for you and who you are on purpose. Moms being their best selves helps kids become their best selves. Like him seeing you chasing that will help show him that's what he should do with his life.
Yeah, and like that's a good point too. Is like he's been along with me for all of those. You know, I was like wearing him when he was 4 weeks old, and I was doing photo sessions, and like he grew up coming to the gym with me. And, like that, you know, seeing that as an example.
I mean, because you are sharing a vulnerable thing. Like motherhood is a personal journey that you're giving your best, and to have other people like either judge that or say negative things. Can you like turn it off, or like how are you like?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination of things, because I don't feel like I get quite as many like nasty comments as I used to. Okay. The majority of what I would get actually would be from people who are against cochlear implants. So it wasn't even about like mothering necessarily.
It's like a hot button issue.
It's more like implanting children without their consent is a big problem sometimes, and there's some people who feel very, very strongly about it, especially if you're not giving them access to ASL. So that's always my biggest frustration, is when people don't like take the 20 seconds to look at my profile, and they just make comments based on one video. Yes. Because, you know, if they did, they would see that like I have given Cooper every opportunity to use ASL. He does not prefer it. Like, you know, he will speak back no matter what. And then I think I just don't get into the comments as much as I used to. I mean, I do still, and I interact with people, but I'm not like, I just have needed to like turn off all my social media notifications. Like, it's just better for me to balance it that way. Yeah, because
he sounds like super funny. I'll finish up and drive this way.
He is. He's hilarious, and it's like how do you come up with these things? Like you're 5. Yeah. The things that he picks up on, I think, because we've put so much emphasis on language and development, and you know, there's days where I'm like, oh my god, have you taken a breath yet? And then I think about it, and I'm like, okay, well, I was told to narrate everything we did when he was little to like expose him to all this language, and so it's like it's my fault, but it's also what we were supposed to be doing. The other thing I love about him is like, say what you want about tablets and screen time, but like I am all for screen time. Like I will lose my mind some days without it. He loves stuff on YouTube Kids about like the solar system, and like he can name all the dwarf planets. Last night he started talking to my husband about bedrock being under soil. And we're just like, like it's just like
it
sticks immediately.
Yes.
He's so smart in that sense.
Yes.
I couldn't even name the solar system in order a year ago.
Yes.
And now I know it because he does.
When I did a dwarf planet, like what's a dwarf planet? I mean
Pluto apparently.
Oh, Pluto. That's
Eris, Makamaka.
Makamaka. Wow, who
Makamaka,
names these things?
like
That's amazing.
And the one thing I do want to say too is like I always am careful because I don't want to come across like, okay, he got cochlear implants and then he could hear and it was all great. Like there was a hard journey and like just because he speaks as well as he does today, it was not always that way. And there was also the added component of COVID. Yeah. Which, so, you know, I had him 6 months before COVID hit. Okay. He had his surgery for implants in June of 2020. So like right in the middle of it. Yeah. And then, you know, we weren't really around people a lot for like that next year. We weren't around other friends that had babies at the same time. And so when we kind of emerged from that, I was like, wow, like I didn't see the contrast of where he was speech wise against others. Yes. And that was like really jarring, I think, for a while, was being like, your child is saying full sentences and like we're happy when he says like the first letter of a sound.
Was that like a real blow? Were you like
at times, but I also like I knew that like that it already was worth it, like because we got to celebrate those little moments so much more. And still like there's still days today where he will say something completely random or like he's reading, like he can read full pages of my books, which is insane to me. And I'll just like start randomly crying because I'm like, it's just been a really cool journey. And like I envy him sometimes too, like the ability that he has to just disconnect and like shut the world off when he wants to. And like I think the hardest moments we face these days are like bath time with a normal, not normal, like a typical child. Add in like literally not being able to hear you and refusing to look at you and doing like the whole like sliding in the bath and splashing.
And then it's like the sensory of like feeling the bath would be so exciting probably.
Yes. And then as soon as you dump water over his head, it's give me a towel. It doesn't give you the second to get a towel. Can't hear you saying that.
How did you decide to do books? We didn't even talk about your books.
I know. There's so many things. I know. Writing was always like my first love. Okay. So I actually worked in journalism. I worked at the local paper here for a while. I did that all through high school and stuff. I just had kind of decided I wanted to like release it, and I always say book about the first one because it's like a self-published. You know, it's not super long, but
it's a book.
Yeah, it came out. I released it like a year after our diagnosis, so the same day. There's probably stuff in it that can relate for parents of just special needs in general. And then the second book. So the ABCs of Inclusion, that one's obviously based or for kids. I just was driving one day and somebody had asked me about a kid's book and suddenly it popped into my head. Like we made so many connections at this point on social media. And I was like, what if we did like an ABCs book, but each letter was like correlated with the kid's name and it was a real child. Aww. So they're all real children in there. And you can like, you know, some of them do share their stories on social media. Some, you know, maybe don't. It was a matter of like finding all 26 kids and like the different diagnoses and stuff. So that one is for kids, I would say. Honestly, adults read it and say they learn things because there's so many diagnoses in it, but so it actually got picked up by a traditional publisher and it's coming out again this fall.
Oh, congratulations.
All new illustration, like it's beautiful.
How are you like, I'm somebody that's going to tell the story of it?
I don't know.
Is it like an advocacy, like I'm going to help other people, or is it like just kind of almost like you have to just tell it? Incredible.
That's a good way to put it. I think I've always been somebody who kind of wears my heart on my sleeve, and it can be like to a fault sometimes. Like, you know, I in the past I overshare, you know, whatever. And maybe before oversharing was more the norm. Now I feel like it really is. So I think it's always been something that came naturally to me. And I was actually talking to somebody the other day about all of the jobs I do. And I was like, you know what? Like at the root of all of that is like storytelling. So like,
I love that.
That whether it's the visuals and the photography or the videography or like, I just love seeing something captured and like come to life. Last night I got a message from somebody who said they have a 3-week-old baby that they're holding and they just found out that they're deaf and like their first time mom, and like it just brings me back. And
the hope that you give those people. Like I think like what you're doing in storytelling is you are saying, one, like in photography, you're beautiful. Like you might not notice it, but like I saw it and look at it, and then your story of like, not that everyone's gonna have the same journey, but like there is hope. You're giving people hope.
And that's why I do try to still share like the harder parts, or like, you know, his actual cochlear implant activation day, because like that a lot of times is not what people expect. Like it's not the magical, like
they're not like, oh, like because you see those YouTube videos and it's like, oh, they're
and that's not how it normally goes. Like they're usually pretty scared and like
really
so I think it's trying to find that balance of like, it's Cooper's story, but it's also our story. And it's like, how much and what and where do I share?
And that's maybe just like how all parenting is though. Like you pivot and you constantly pay attention to what works right now, this month, this year, this day. The last question I was thinking is, are there things like when you think of yourself back, like maybe just like when you found out you're pregnant and then his diagnosis, all this stuff, that you'd be like, if I could just tell you, like, are there things that you would totally tell yourself? Or
even if I could have told myself, then so what? Like, it wouldn't have been a lived experience. I still wouldn't, you know, I have a hard time believing things when they're said to me. Like when somebody says, like, pull us back and you won't change this.
Yes.
It still would have been like a process that I'd have to go through to get to that point, I think.
Yeah.
But I think it would be that there are so many like silver linings and connections that you wouldn't, if you seek them out, that you wouldn't have made otherwise. Like this last summer, we actually went out to DC and we met up with 2 families that I met on Instagram who have kids Coop's age with cochlear implants. Yeah. And we spent like 4 days together and it felt like we had known each other forever. Yeah. And we literally like met on Instagram because our kids are deaf and we use sign language.
Yep. It feels like there's always a theme, and I feel like it is just kind of like your story helps other people, and that's that vulnerability is worth the risk it is for you, I think. Like,
and it far outweighs the negative on social media. That's what when people ask, like, how do you manage the negative? I'm like, it's such a tiny percentage compared to the positive. Yeah. In terms of like what we share, at least. I know.
That's really cool. But we always end it with like, cheers, we did
cheers.
this.
Okay.
We did it. Okay. Yay!
I feel like I've known you forever.
I know. Well, thank you so much.